So we've probably all dealt with a client not actually paying you, and it's a total pain in the ass when it happens, because more often than not, if you do work for a client and you have a contract or an agreement, the reality is, you're typically charging for a contract 50% up front and then 50% upon completion. But, to service the client, you've had a bunch of your costs coming in as well. In today's video, I'm going to talk about my strategy that I use for recovering lost funds when it comes to clients not actually paying me, and also the realities of some of the contracts that we as agency owners actually sign. Now, I run an email and SMS marketing agency. This is just how I do it. I'm not saying this is the best way that you can possibly do it. I'm sure there's lawyers who would advise separately, but this is just my strategy that I use for recovering money that payments typically owe me. So let's get into it. Now, I want to start this video really by saying that contracts that are under a certain value are largely just complete bullshit anyway. I know it sounds crazy, right? But if you have a contract for a client that's typically under the value of $5,000, the contract itself really isn't worth that much in terms of how much you can enforce. Because, if it's worth under $10,000, $5,000, you're not really gonna hire a lawyer to enforce that contract. And then if you do get a positive outcome, hopefully the client pays you. The money that you're gonna spend on the lawyer is probably gonna be more than the money owed to you by the client. And also the amount of headache that you have to go through is probably not worth the value of lost revenue here. So just keep in mind that even if you wanna go down the legal route through the use of enforcement of your contracts, no matter how tight that contract is, if it's under a certain value in the agency space, for the most part, it's not even really worth pursuing. The contract really is there, I think, in my experience, to give the client more trust as far as, seeing that you're legit and getting something in place. And then also kind of really getting a sense of obligation from both parties when it comes to deliverables. It's a sense of obligation though, right? Yes, it's legally enforceable, but at the same time, the effort required to enforce that contract from a legal standpoint, as well as an effort standpoint, is usually not worth it if it's under 10K in value. So with that in mind, I'm gonna run you through my process under the assumption that you have a contract signed with the client. So I've had this a few times where we have a contract signed, and with email marketing, typically, we do two types of work. We do retainer-based work, which is campaigns, or project-based work, which is, automations and stuff like that. And the automation piece, typically how we tackle the work there is we do 50% of the total fee due up front, so 50% of the contract value, i.e. if we build out flows for $4,000 to $5,000, we'll take $2,000 to $2,500 up front, and then the remaining when the job is complete. Now, I've only actually ever had to deal with two clients like this in the 4 years, I think, of currently doing business. It might be 5, I'm not 100% sure, but I've only had to deal with two people in this instance where they haven't paid, okay? And usually though, the non-payment issue comes when it's time for the remaining 50% to be due, okay? Now, what happens is more often than not, if you're having issues, it's either A, the client doesn't have money, which is essentially what's happened to us multiple times, or B, the client hasn't been satisfied with the deliverables, okay? So if the client isn't satisfied with the deliverables, the first thing you need to do is actually acknowledge that they're not happy and do everything you can to actually rectify the situation, right? Even if you're like, hey, screw you, we did the work, at least in our eyes, we've done the work, we still want our money. They might actually still pay you, but the reputational burn at that point is, I don't think, worthwhile. So if a client's pissed off and they're refusing to pay, typically we do everything we can to make sure they're happy to alleviate that issue. Really quickly, sorry to interrupt the video. I just wanted to tell you something really cool that we've started doing with Inbox. I've actually created a school community where I teach you anything and everything I know about email and SMS marketing, from really advanced campaign strategies to how to simply set up your Klaviyo account, all the way to building really, really cool automations for the back end of your e-commerce store. Whether you're a business owner trying to learn how to do email marketing or an email marketer trying to learn how to become a better email marketer, there is a link in the description to this school community where I teach you everything I know. Check it out, it's worthwhile. Book a call to have a chat with me to see if you're a right fit for the community, and if you are, I'd love to get you in there. Anyway, sorry for interrupting your video, let's get back to it. Now, let's say that they don't have the money to pay you. The alternative there is to offer payment terms for them. Just keep in mind, like if you stagger out your payment terms long enough, eventually they're gonna miss them, right? If they owe you $2,000 and you're like, hey, you can pay us $500 for 4 months, I guarantee you, after about the second month, they're gonna stop paying you again as well. So, what do you do if they stopped paying you? Both in the case of they're dissatisfied and you believe you have done everything you can to remedy the situation with the client, or they cannot afford to pay you, or they say they cannot afford to pay you. At the end of the day, you have two options. You either have the option of saying, hey, you know what, whatever, wash my hands, move on, right? Or B, get your fucking money, okay? Like, honestly, the way that I look at it is I look at it as though this person, by not paying me, is actually saying to my team, hey, you guys aren't worthwhile, I'm not gonna pay you, you have bills to pay, right? And you have a responsibility to your team members to pay them as well. And so if the client doesn't pay you, they are actively taking money away from the rest of your team. That's how I look at it, and it helps get me in a position where I'm a lot more willing to fight and actually pursue this money. So the first thing I do, right? The first thing I do with the client who hasn't offered to pay me is I send them an email. And I send them an email where I say, hi there, just wanted to give you an update. And keep in mind, this is after everything, you've done everything that you possibly can. I say, hi there, just want to give you an update. I'm currently going to be selling, right? I'm currently going to be selling your debt to the following debt recovery company, okay? What this means is what I do is I then link a debt recovery company within the area that they live in, right? And I say what this means is that they will be buying the debt obligation from me, right? Which means essentially you get less money because this is how debt reclamation works, right? If you have a contract for $5,000, you can sell it to a debt reclamation company for like $3,000 and then they will try and recover the total value of it. And I say, I'll be selling the following debt to this debt reclamation company. They will be paying me a sum for the value of this contract and they will be pursuing legal action. However, I am more than happy to go ahead and proceed with a payment prior to actually selling this debt on, and we can get everything solved. Please note, if you do not wish to go down this route, you are obligated to pay the outstanding balance as well as the legal fees for that debt reclamation company. Now, is that true? I don't know. But the reality is you're trying to recover the money that you are owed. And keep in mind, like this is stuff that you genuinely think you are owed. For me, if I feel like we actually totally fucked up a job and the client isn't willing to pay, I'm usually like, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, and I offer them a reduced rate. But if you genuinely feel like you're owed, I literally go through the process of finding a debt reclamation company or recovery company. I don't even know if reclamation's a word, but a recovery company within the city or state that the client is in, and I hyperlink that company in an email to them, and just to make them like see that this is serious, right? Like we have a company that we've got lined up here. And I send that over to them. 80% of the time that I've done that, it has worked, okay? It has worked. Let me actually say, like, we only had 3 clients that haven't paid us, so 66% of the time, it has worked, right? They pay us after the threat of, like, that legal action kind of comes in, and then you say, you give them, like, a time frame within that email, right? So I'll say, hey, you have 4 days to pay the invoice. At the end of the 4 days, this company will then be taking over the contract. Once again, you will be obligated to cover the legal expenses as well as the total value of the contract. I'm more than happy to, settle at the current rate, or even if you want, give them like a less rate, like a lower rate, just to wipe our hands of this entire problem, and then we're good to go, right? That is what I do, and then as the time gets closer to that 4-day end date, I send them follow-up reminders, and then if they still don't pay, you do actually have the option of going through the debt, reclaim agency if you want to do that. I've never actually done it because the values of the contracts that we've done, it's not even worth the headache. But the threat alone of having to do that really helps recover some of the lost funds. That's my strategy. That's what I have done to recover funds that I genuinely think are owed, not because of bad work, but because the client is refusing to pay for some shady reason, right? That's my strategy. I use that. Give it a go if you're having this issue. It might be worthwhile. In terms of like the legal nuances of then going to the next steps after that, I can't really speak to it because we're just so busy. I don't really have time to pursue some of this stuff. But hopefully that works, and hopefully if you're a client of mine who is refusing to pay, which we haven't had any in about a year now, you're not watching this video. And if you are, pay me my money. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, check them in the comment section down below. I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching. If that's something you need, just go ahead and book a call on my calendar down below as well. Check out my school community where I help people who are email marketers improve on their email marketing. Check out my newsletter. Any questions, check them down below. We'll see you in the new video, which happens twice per week. Thanks for watching.